The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side. Doug Billings here with you. Thank you for being here. Hey, don't forget also, subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Right Side Doug Billings. At The Right Side Doug Billings over on YouTube, where they have let me out of YouTube jail. I was in the can for 4 years. Well, we're back, and here we are. So I want to start with something that you can feel in America and around the world. Even if you can't articulate it, I'm sure that many of you out there feel it. The world is changing, and it's not gradually, not politely, and it's not happening with press releases, not happening with fanfare, but it is shifting. And I think that many of you can feel it. The reason everything feels like it's louder, angrier, more people active, more chaotic, more unstable. The reason all of that is happening around us is because an entire era of power is ending. Really, think about it. And people who benefited from that era of power are terrified, truly. The last 30 years, they have really, they've caused us to live under what I call the globalist illusion. The globalist illusion is a consortium of elites who have thrust their agenda upon us. Borders were supposed to fade away. National identities were supposed to be erased or softened. And sovereignty was supposed to give way to this global governance that would have been managed by these elites. And everyday people were supposed to, if they had followed the plan of the elites, these globalist elites, everyday people were supposed to stop thinking in terms of their country, their culture, their future. Power was supposed to be moving upward towards this elite group of globalists, moving up towards them and away from voters, away from citizens, and away from accountability. And that power was designed to be channeled into international institutions, bureaucracies, global mandates, a new world order, and financial systems that no one ever voted for. And for a while there, their agenda was working. People were busy. The economy was moving along. And the media kept everyone distracted. But here's the thing about artificial systems, and all of that stuff that I mentioned from this globalist agenda is an artificial system. They only work as long as the people inside of those systems believe the story. And that story is collapsing. And you can see it in real time all around the world. What we are watching right now in America, in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, in Europe, it's the end of the globalist era. And it's the birth of something very, very different. I call it the sovereignty era. That's what is now beginning to birth itself across the globe. And it doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean war. It means something much more than that, really. It means something that is very threatening to the elites. Ladies and gentlemen, it means that nations are remembering who they are. Quite frankly, look at what's happening. Iran, for example, a regime that was supposed to be, as we're told, stable, locked in, permanent. It's being eaten alive by its own people. And why is that? Well, it's because the global system can hide corruption, but it can't feed families. And when families begin to starve and your back's up against the wall, people begin to act in different ways. And the youth of Iran, in many ways, are leading that charge. Saudi Arabia, quietly repositioning itself. And this is it's not a criticism of Saudi Arabia. It's what any smart country would do, but it knows that Iran's days as a regional enforcer and a regional power are ending. Why? Because survival in a sovereignty era requires that you choose your own future instead of having to wait for permission to do that. China pushing back against U.S. economic pressure, pushing back against the America First initiative. Look, China's weak. China has military parades that are made up of nothing but paper mache weaponry. And I mean that literally. They are angry because America is finally using the one weapon that actually works: access to the American markets and our money. Every nation on earth needs to do business with America. It's not a matter of wanting to. They need to. And inside of the United States, we see sanctuary states who are defying federal law, criminal aliens being released into the streets, and bureaucracies that are openly resisting the Constitution of the United States. That's not because they're winning. It's because they're losing control that we're seeing all of this. And it seems louder today than it has in the past. Because the secret is, no one in the establishment wants you to understand this. Globalism depends on chaos, 100%. And sovereignty depends on order, law and order. Chaos makes people desperate. Easy to see that. Desperate people tend to surrender power. And power surrendered never comes back voluntarily. Panicked people, when they give up power because they're desperate, say, okay, take care of me. Because the government's promising to give me free food, free rent, free health care. All of those, tick, 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 checks the box, slavery. You are slaves to the government, which is exactly what the radical liberal movement in America and around the world wants. They want you to be dependent upon them. That's why they've excommunicated God from their platform. You can't be dependent upon a God. You must be dependent upon the state. That's why the radical left, the globalist institutions, and the media all want you to be emotionally exhausted. They want you in that state. They want you screaming. They want you panicking. They want you saying, this is too much. I can't handle it. Somebody else take over. But something's changed. I'm telling you, something has changed. People are no longer asking, what does the system want? And they're asking right now, who does this system serve? Now, they might not be asking it in those exact words, but they're asking the question. And that's dangerous for anyone who lives and depends on control. That's why you see hysteria all about this illegal immigrant situation and ICE. It's why you see hysteria about law enforcement. And it's why you see hysteria about the DOJ being quiet. There's not enough arrests. Because quiet means strategy. And strategy means something is being built. The old globalist model was very loud. It needed summits. It needed conferences, declarations. It needed photo ops and press conferences. It needed sound bites. The sovereignty era that we're entering upon is quiet. It moves through trade, through currency, through legal pressure, through alliances, and through economic leverage, to name a few. That's why President Trump doesn't need to shout, and it's why our Justice Department doesn't need to go into emotional or jurisdictional theatrics on the cable news program. Justice doesn't work on cable news schedules. And a 25% tariff on Iranian trade partners, that does more damage to Iran than 1,000 speeches. Economic gravity is real, my friends. Propaganda isn't. That's why collapsing systems always get emotional, and they want you to be emotional. Emotion is the last refuge of a system that's realizing that it can't enforce reality anymore. And make no mistake about this. What you are seeing right now is not a collapse. I'm talking about America. It's not a collapse around the world. But with regards and in terms of what we're seeing in America, it is a reordering. The world and the United States is moving away from global bureaucrats, moving away from permanent emergencies. We're always in a state of crisis because crises wear you down. Crises make you tired. That's what the radical liberal left wants. We're moving away from open borders and endless wars and unaccountable institutions. And we're moving towards national interests, economic realism, borders, energy independence, and law and order. Imagine that. That's what sovereignty looks like. Sovereignty is not sexy necessarily. It's not loud, not flashy. It's not theatrical. It's patient. It's structural. And ladies and gentlemen, it is unstoppable. So when you hear people yelling, "Where are the arrests? Why isn't Trump talking about that? Where's Bondi and Patel?" Understand that you're really hearing frustration, exhaustion, cynicism, which is exactly what the left wants. That's where they want you. Step out of that and begin to see that justice in America happens silently behind the scenes, building appeal-proof cases and convictions that last. You're hearing people who were trained out there when they're yelling for those things, more arrests, perp walks. They've been trained by the media to expect some sort of a spectacle, not some sort of a calm system. But systems are exactly what change history. Spectacle doesn't. It's not the spectacle of the beheading of the King of France that caused France to fall. It was the change of the system behind the scenes that did that. And history is being rewritten again right now in real time, not by the mobs, not by the riots that we see, certainly not by cable news and the mainstream media. It's being rewritten by nations deciding that their future belongs to them again. That's the sovereignty era, my friends. And it has already begun. Give yourselves permission to believe that. Follow me on YouTube, at The Right Side Doug Billings. At The Right Side Doug Billings over on YouTube. Catch me every day on the Real Talk Radio Network, Monday through Friday, noon to 2 o'clock Central Time. If you want a personal greeting, book me on Cameo. Until then, remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are in this thing together. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the set of my show, Doug Billings. Hey, my good friends at EMP Shield, that's electromagnetic pulse, in case you're from Raytown, Missouri. Electromagnetic pulse could wipe out your home electrical system, could wipe out your vehicle. And thanks to the radical liberal agenda that was put forth under Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris, there are lots of people in this country who want to do us harm. And maybe an EMP device would be their chosen weapon. But EMP Shield gives you a device that can protect you. This little baby here goes on your home outlets, a computer, a router, whatever you want to protect. And then they also have a larger model like this. You can still hold it in the palm of your hand that goes on your vehicle battery so that you can get out of trouble from point A to point B. EMPshield.com. Promo code Doug, ladies and gentlemen. Save yourself. Save your property. EMPshield.com. Promo code Doug. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.